मैम रेसिंग ऑन झालं.
Good morning, everyone. What a lovely day, isn't it? On behalf of the Team Matrix, I, Sheetal, will be your host for the event. We, the Team Matrix, are a club of cybersecurity enthusiasts. Our team was founded back in 2009 by our loving seniors and dedicated faculties. We are thriving and excelling in association with the ISACA student group. ISACA student group not just educates us, but also provides us the platform to connect with the like-minded peers in the field of cybersecurity and to network with highly skilled industry experts. With this, I would like to extend gratitude to ISACA student group and our sponsor ISACA on behalf of Team Matrix and Symbiosis Center for Information Technology. I would also like to thank our community partners, Cybersecurity Global Alliance, Nelcon, Rainbow Secure, and Stories of InfoSec Journeys. I would also like to extend appreciation to our seniors and ISACA student group members, Rohan Nayak, Rimi Ghosh, Indira Roy, Arun Sharma, for being the constant source of inspiration and motivation for us to excel in the field of cybersecurity and also to make this day happen. This event would not have been possible without the help of our director, ma'am, Dhanya Pramod, deputy director, Kanchan ma'am, and our mentors, Vidyavati ma'am, Nisha ma'am, and Angelina ma'am, and our very own admin officer, Savita ma'am. Cybersecurity Awareness Month is a collaborative effort between government and industry to ensure everyone in the nation has the resources they need to be safer and more secure online. Every year, it is celebrated in the month of October since 2003. To make you all aware of this year's theme, I would like to request my team to play a video. Please, sir. Thank you, team. So, this year, the theme for the event is Cyber War, an evolving model of rectitude. Our team aims to prepare everyone for taking proactive measures to safeguard their data and get justice for any attack. Cyber 4 is an abbreviation for a cyberspace survivor. The COVID-19 pandemic has completely changed the ways organizations operate and the ways we work, play, communicate, and fundamentally function. This transition has comparatively been easier for young adults and children who were born in this digital era. Our theme focuses on spreading awareness on cyber laws and citizen rights, attack on personal devices, attack through malicious sites, blind consent on agreements, ease over security, flawed security practices, on surfing smartly, sharing less, thinking first, and majorly on providing justice to the cyber survivors. With this, I would like to introduce you all to the theme of our panel discussion for today. That is, redefining the ways of cybersecurity regulations, protecting individuals and organizations from ever-evolving cybercrimes. Let's ask ourselves, are we strong enough to prevent cyber attacks from happening? Or how about the next goals? Each country, organization, and especially people must think of the arms we need to ensure that our data are safe. It is time for cyber survivors to take the right action to ensure justice is done. At this time, while the globe moves towards the era of virtualization, there is no time to mourn for the losses. The escalating tensions between the countries of the globe are a major reason why we might to pause and ponder on the necessity of global cyber governance. With this, I would like to take the honor to introduce you to our panelists, Mr. Anirudh Duggal, Mr. Kushagra Mehra, Mr. Shyam Sundar Ramaswamy, Mr. Vikas Kedia, Mr. Shwamiran Das Gupta, and Mr. Lalit Popli and Ms. Shivani Sharma. Now, I would like to welcome our esteemed faculty members and my beloved batchmates to this event. I hope all of you are equally enthusiastic as much we are. We are going to have a great day ahead. I would like to invite our director, Dr. Dhanya Pramod, to formally welcome our guests for today and start the event with her words of wisdom. Please, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Sheetal. Esteemed panelists, keynote speakers, and all my colleagues and dear students, a very good morning to you all. And I formally welcome you all to this Cyber Security Awareness Month event. This is one of the prestigious flagship event of our cyber security enthusiast of SCIT. So the journey of cybersecurity started at SCIT way back in 2006, I would say, wherein we started a specialization program in information security. From there on, we stood as the pioneer in cybersecurity education and has got placed in the minds of so many industry experts. So today, SCIT is known as the first place to look for the cybersecurity candidates, or you could say that when it comes to job, SCIT is preferred as the first choice for almost all the industry experts. So this journey is, in fact, not possible if we did not have this team metrics. So I appreciate all the efforts of team metrics and ISACA student group. They have been the ambassadors of promoting this security awareness among their own batchmates and to the peers and all the students around them. And of course, when they get into the industry, their performance were immensely valued. And this particular, event has been one of the platform wherein we used to bring in industry experts, and that was another source of inspiration for all our students. So congratulations for again setting up this event during all this, tough times. And when we think about cybersecurity day by day, the demand for it is growing and the need for it is actually, we will say, inevitable. So if you look at the kind of technology advancements that happened over the last decade, so from industry to common man, the connectivity has reached out. And today, in addition to what industry is looking at cybersecurity, the need for awareness to individual citizens or even children, I would say, that is necessary. So, going beyond the professional way of looking at cybersecurity, I urge the student group here to look at security, cybersecurity as a social responsibility and spread awareness in more aggressive way. So definitely we all are doing it. And when you look at the cyberspace and the attacks that are happening every day, the common man is also getting affected because of cyber security incidents. And cyber police, in fact, don't have time to even solve those millions of cases that are, getting piled up. So, as a social responsibility, our students could definitely take this ahead, and team metrics could drive it from the front, so that every common man will be knowing the nuances of using the smartphones and other internet connected things. And definitely this will give an edge to SCIT and definitely the students. So I am sure the faculty members also will be very much interested in associated with this kind of activities. And when you look at the attack space, starting with a ransomware kind of attack, malware attack, till a small OTP attack, or you could say social engineering attack, everyone come across this every day. So there is no difference between a common man and a security expert when it comes to becoming the target of attacks. So I think this platform is, definitely an advantage to all of you. And this group discussions and information sharing sessions conducted by the student group, Team Metrics and ISACA. So definitely we have to capitalize this, and I urge all of you to take this more aggressively. And in coming years, SCIT will be also known as Security Education Institute for Common Man. That's the way I am foreseeing the Team Metrics and CSAM month in the years to come. So with that, congratulations to all those students and the faculty members who are putting efforts to put up this particular event. And I am sure there will be a great value add when you listen to these industry experts. This field is an emerging field. Every day, you could say new and new, technology and hacking attempts happening. So lots to learn and continue learning. All the very best, and once again welcome all of you for this event. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you for those kind and empowering words, ma'am. Before inviting our guest, I would like to request my batchmates to keep their questions for the end and queries. They can post that in the chat box. We'll take it later. So with that, I am humbled to invite our keynote speaker for today, Mr. Anirudh Duggal. Sir is a senior software security engineer at Microsoft. He has presented his research on medical device security in conferences like Black Hat USA, HITB Netherlands, HitCon Taiwan, KuCon India, and NullCon India. He has a background in computer science with a master's in cybersecurity from Northeastern University, Boston. He has worked on breaking and securing IoT devices, including medical devices, networks, mobile, cloud computing infrastructure, and applications. Anirudh sir also spends time teaching people about security. Sir, kindly grace us with your immense knowledge of this field. Over to you, sir.
Am I audible? Okay. Uh, yeah, thank you so much for this warm introduction. And please feel free to keep it informal. It's fine. I am not that smart, like I see. So let me just share. So I have a slide deck prepared, and I would really hope that people would chime in and we can talk about some things. If there's background noise, if there's anything, just let me know. So, all right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, let's do this. All right. So I so there were so when I was invited to speak, there were a lot of things that I wanted to talk about. Uh, but I decided to just talk about the next hack, And what does that mean is I believe that we're all learning, and I wish someone had taught me all of this when I was graduating out of college. And this is hopefully this will give you some food for thought. It'll force you to look beyond what you're learning and think about the possibilities. This presentation is also my views on the way I feel the technology is progressing and how we're going to see attacks in the future. So just as a background, my name is Anirudh. I work for Microsoft in Azure Data. So my job, day-to-day job, is to break SQL and a lot of data services. Uh, I've previously worked for healthcare companies where I was breaking medical devices, EMR machines, and during the process, I've worked uh, with federal agencies here in US. So we did some workshops for the FDA. We did joint partnerships with hospitals, and we were trying to figure out how to break into stuff. Uh, I've also participated and presented my research at various conferences. Uh, yeah, so that's a background about me. Today basically we're going to talk about a couple of things. One, I would like you to think about security as product security and operational security. We'll talk about the opportunities that I see, upcoming opportunities in this field. We'll talk a little bit about the evolution of attacks and why I believe cloud security and IoT is something that you'll encounter a lot more than you've already done. We'll talk about how do we profit from this, and we'll have Q&A. If there is any question and if you cannot follow anything, please feel free to stop me and we can take just be casual and just stop me for any questions. Uh, right, so am I audible? Is this working?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
of course.
cool. Right, awesome. So let's talk about what do we say when we talk about product security? If you look at the way how products are built, when you start working or if you worked earlier, there are three main things that you'll see. One is the kind of code that you push out. So this includes the languages that you write. So C, C++, C Sharp, Java, whatever is your language. Uh, there is a very big scope of configuration, which means how do you configure these products? What is the scope of your product? How does it work? What kind of identities does it use? And then we look at products from a platform perspective. So where does your product run? Is it on cloud? Is it on-premise? Is it an embedded device? And it's important to understand, I feel it's important to understand uh, security in this way, because when you can answer these questions, you can start to break it down. So as a pen tester, what I try to do is I look at the language and then I try to figure out, can I do a memory corruption in this case? Or if I know that it's running with an identity, can I steal that identity and do something else? And if I'm doing embedded attacks or on cloud, I think about it in a different way. When you and this is something that I want you to take away from this. Like if you want to understand or if you want to jump into product security, these are the kind of questions you need to ask. Do I like looking at code? Do I like looking at configurations, or do I like scrutinizing the platforms? Uh, and then let's talk about operation security. And operation security is basically when you're targeting people. So this comes in picture when we are targeting when we're doing red team operations. So as a day-to-day job, what I tend to do is we do red team operations where we attack our organization and then we try to figure out if we can do some damage. So we really act as outsiders. And when we're dealing with that, we're actually dealing with people. So which means I know some people have some access. How do I get access to those people? and their identities. I also think about what is the technology and platform they're using. So, which means, is this a cloud platform? Are they on a Windows machine? Are they on Linux? Can I gain access to their environment, and what do I do with that? Then, when we talk of operation security, we also talk of processes. And this typically means, what kind of culture do we have? So, when we do red teaming operations, I'm sorry, what I've seen is in some cases, the business gets really, really angry. Like, why would you hack us? And in some cases, the business is really open to scrutiny, where they say, oh, yeah, we made a mistake and this is what we need to do. Uh, this helps in the long run. And coming back to the theme that we're talking, the more closed culture that you have, the harder it's going to be to remediate security. So these are the two things that I want you to remember before you start into, when you delve into product security, like securing or breaking products. Now, these after not a lot of thinking, but this is what I've seen. The two main opportunities that I feel will grow exponentially in the next in the coming years. I cannot say decade or 5 years or whatever, but I'm pretty sure this will happen. And cloud security, I feel uh, we're seeing. So so let's be really clear. Cloud is some just another computer on some other place. It is nothing different other. And so when you're talking about cloud security, you're basically talking about infrastructure security. And at one point, you're actually breaking software. And we've seen an exponential growth. And one of the reasons is the kind of capabilities that you get with cloud. Uh, it was, I think, about 5 years ago, it really didn't make any sense for you to, go on to the cloud, because at that time, what we were trying to deal with was, I really don't need that much processing power. But now, with IoT, with cloud, what we're seeing a trend is we're seeing a lot of data being moved to the cloud and being processed really, really fast. So, and there are, different technologies. So it's networks are getting faster. We want more detailed analysis, and this is all starting to fuel the cloud adoption. So everybody wants real-time analytics. Everybody wants to, churn up data, move data, or just store data. So, if you're talking of just backing up your photos onto the cloud, it's really, really complex if you look at it from, and I've seen how these backends look like. There's backup after backup after backup. So there's a lot of processing that goes into all of this. So I think, and that part of the picture is not going anywhere anytime soon. So you'll see more businesses adopt, and that's why cloud security is going to come up. Now, IoT is interesting. IoT, in my opinion, and this goes for consumer healthcare and small scale industries or operations. Uh, Consumer, why? I think the cost of operating, making these devices has gone so low that it's really, really easy for anyone to create IoT devices. And healthcare, I started working in healthcare when healthcare was really, healthcare security was just picking up. Ransomware attacks were just starting. I think when I joined in, I think we saw the first wave of really ransomware attacks at that time. And most of healthcare security that you see is coming out of the US. We have some work to do in India, uh, but you'll see a trend of hacking healthcare devices, and the reason is that healthcare for a really, really long time, that data was, you know, was just, I would say, was not open to all. So you had, if you wanted access to someone's health data, you better be a hospital or you were an EMR provider. Now what we're seeing is with Apple jumping into the picture, Microsoft jumping into the picture, even other smaller companies jumping into the picture, everybody wants healthcare data. And that puts you in a really interesting spot where smaller vendors, like anyone who's making a band, wants to know what was your heart rate. And at that point, it becomes, that kind of data is really, really important. And so you're going to see with the smaller vendors coming to the picture, you'll see a lot of other attacks coming. And of course, small scale industry operations, they don't have a lot of money, but then we underestimate the kind of data that these companies have. So just as an example, if we talk about uh, a manufacturing facility, even gas pumps or petrol pumps, these people have a lot data than we imagine, and all of that data is being flown to cloud. All of this data is going somewhere. It's not staying, on premise because these devices cannot hold that data. Uh, the bigger problem with all of these IoT devices is think of these devices like if you were hacking computers in 90s, this is again, as we say, the cycle. This is exactly what's happening right now. So if you've read this a really cool paper called Smashing the Stack, and which basically tells you how to do a buffer overflow. And Windows made tremendous progress. Linux made tremendous progress, and we made baked hardware, and we put all of these protections. And now you have these $5 devices where you can absolutely corrupt the memory. So these devices are really small. So you'll see all of those attacks being revived again. So you'll see like crazy botnets trying to hack everything. And that's where uh, we as security professionals have tremendous opportunity to secure IoT devices. I feel IoT with cloud is going to be something that so you might not pursue it, but you would not be able to ignore any of this in the future. So let me talk about how attacks have slowly been sophisticated, or how they've changed. So I mean, I ever since I started to hack or started to learn about security, there was always someone hacking a webcam, a doorbell cam, or a nanny cam. So that's always remained constant. But we saw an interesting trend where, in 2017, this news really popped up where IoTs, where people were hacking toasters and stuff like that. But people were hacking, like a casino was hacked using fish tank, which is, which is kind of science fiction type of a thing. Uh, and then you saw, in 2018, attackers started to be more sophisticated because it was at that time you're also seeing the rise of internet, you're seeing cryptocurrency rising. So now attackers, what they're doing is they're not just exfiltrating data. They're actually mining bitcoins, and this is something that we've seen in my daily life, in my daily work also. Like I've seen attackers, even if they don't exfiltrate data, they would like to have a lot of infrastructure and they would like to mine bitcoins or whatever coin that you want. And it presents a different set of challenges, but you see all of these things happening. Recently, last year, a social media giant, a microblogging site was hacked, and the attacker was asking for bitcoins again. Now, these attacks are getting more sophisticated. These are phishing attacks, but and I'll tell you some of the common things that happened. And again, this happened last week, where a video game streaming platform was hacked with the source code, data, pay stubs, everything. It was a 120 GB dump. The interesting thing is, in all of this, you're able to move a large set of data relatively easy. Uh, and that was something that was unheard. Like if I was exfiltrating gigabytes of data about 5 or 6 years ago, it was extremely hard. And now what we're seeing is people are not using command and control servers in the traditional way. So earlier you used to see, hackers were relaying servers or relaying their attacks through different countries. now they spin up a cloud, they use a cloud platform, and you would see, cloud providers. So Google, AWS, Azure, they move data using that. So it's not even, you're not even talking of, it's not that hard to move data now. And that is what I want you to understand. Cloud has also enabled you to, it works both ways. You can push in a lot of data, but you can also remove a lot of data relatively quicker. So this is how I believe the attacks have evolved. Now, this is how what I feel attacks look like now. So when I do vulnerability analysis, I'm not talking of, this really where I would go and I would say that, can I break this? But the kind of things that I look at has changed to, can I read configuration? Can I talk to other services? Uh, can I do a DOS on the infrastructure? And one of the things that we look for is, am I root yet? Which means that I understand. So earlier when I was doing website, when I was doing web security or thick client application security, I was looking at different things. I was looking at, how do I get root on the server? But now if I get root on the server, I can use the foothold to actually gain access to your cloud environment. And this is something that is not going to change. This is something that you'll see more than often, that attackers are not going to stop if they get root, or if they can do an XSS. That is, I feel that has become more of an inconvenience, client-side attacks. But server-side attacks and getting access to the infrastructure is becoming the next big thing. And the same goes for red team activities. So when we try to break into environments, what we're looking at, how do we get access to more identities? How do we read more data? How do we manipulate resources? Which means, can we do crypto mining? Can we create more uh, resources? Can we create uh, machines that can further our access? So the definition, like our approach has changed a lot in terms of red teaming, vulnerability analysis, and this is all because of the adoption of cloud. So this brings us to really, really interesting securing opportunities. So we see a lot of uh, security, like investments in isolation and identity. So business are really concerned of, this. Usually we expect that you're on a cloud, there's segregated network, and you'll see like subnets and all. In practice, not really. And I say this after working for a couple of companies. It doesn't really work like that. Everyone wants the fastest and the easiest way is a flat network. And this is where we tend to not think about identities or networks. So there is this opportunity of understanding, how do you isolate networks? How do you push defense in depth practices? And what do I mean by that is, are you running again as root? Is there least privilege? Have you ever done a tabletop exercise where you say, okay, I'm priest, what do I do next? Uh, these are the kind of questions that usually are not answered. Now we also talk about, and this is something that is underrated, where I feel you'll see a lot of businesses put in a lot of money, where starting to we're starting with monitoring and logging and detection. So uh, of all the attacks that you saw that happened, and let me put it this way. So all of these attacks, uh, I think there was just one where the automaker's cloud was hacked to mine Bitcoin, where something was detected on time. Everything else, it 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 took the attacker or the business realized that they were hacked and something was wrong way after then they should have detected. And this is where and this is why I feel businesses will start to now look at their dev test production environments, and they'll start to do anomaly detection and more isolation in the future. A cloud will access all of that. All right. All right. So, am I audible? Can someone?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are.
Okay, cool. All right. So, how do we profit from all of this? I mean, and this is what I want you to take away from this talk. Uh, there was this really cool. I think when I graduated, I could have. I did not really care about cloud security. It was new and it was still upcoming. IoT was doing the same thing. It was new, upcoming. Nothing was really changing. But I now feel if you're breaking into security, it is absolutely important that you understand the basic concepts. So you need to understand a couple of concepts, like you understand, basic infrastructure or basic, like you understand that there is C sharp and C++ and all of that. I think it's time that you will have to understand that there are Cloud Foundation templates, CFTs, that work with AWS. You have to have some idea that there are multiple identities in Azure. And the same goes for GCP. Like you will have to understand some of these concepts that you can actually take terabytes of data and throw it into a pipeline, and then you can process all of this. And this is going to be the next, you are going to talk like that. It will be assumed that you know some part of the internet runs on the cloud, and you will have to understand that it works similar way. So there was a time like when I graduated, I didn't have to really understand distributed computing. DNS, authentication, identity. It was cool to know all of that, but now, if you were following the news, there was a massive outage of a social media giant, and it was basically in the BGP. And BGP is something that if you were not in the hardcore networking, you really never knew, like, why would I need to know BGP? But now you would have to understand concepts like these, DNS, authentication, identity, because you are going to interact with a lot of people who are going to make all of this. So I would highly recommend like doing something which is really basic. Just pick up a cloud, understand you don't need to be an expert there, but you really need to understand what are the capabilities of cloud. Can you push data onto, databases? How do you scale? How do DOS attacks look like? What are the opportunities there? So even if you have a basic idea, I feel that is you will benefit a lot out of this. And the same goes for IoT. Uh, we like I talked earlier, there were a set of attacks that were not really relevant to modern computing devices. Like if I wanted to do a buffer overflow, I cannot think of doing this out of the box on a Windows 10 or Windows 11 device. It doesn't really work. I'll have to, most of the time, if I was doing buffer overflow, I was typically looking at, C++ code. But now you have these IoT devices that are really small, and you can crash these devices really easily. Uh, they have tons of bugs. Look at your routers. You have these crazy botnets that attack these every day. And so this is going to present an interesting opportunity for you to learn more. Like this is a really good time to go on to the foundations of, how do we attack operating systems. So this is going to present an interesting opportunity. The same goes for platform integrity, reverse engineering. So if you were talking of any embedded device, which surprisingly or scarily, there are a lot. Like your TV is an IoT device, your microwave is an IoT device. I have like bulbs that are IoT devices. My speaker system is an IoT device. Healthcare devices are IoT devices. And they more or less they look for platform integrity. They look for how are you signing your firmware, how are you encrypting your firmware, how are you protecting against reverse engineering. And this is not even hard. every second company that I know, like almost every company has some sort of IP in IoT now. So you will have to understand some of the things like what is a secure boot? Why is firmware security even a thing? Because you see so many devices that this is not going to be, to you. I You won't have time to understand it later. So this is a good opportunity to learn all of this. And so it's not just this. You'll see a lot of web attacks also being done on these IoT devices. So I remember uh, there were a set of attacks that uh, when I was while I was doing IoT security, I came across them, and these were supposed to be like gone. Like these were attacks from 90s, and I kid you not, these were browser attacks, like not even XSS. These are obsolete attacks where I think, this is not going to work. But there are some attacks that work because these devices are so small that they've essentially adapted technologies and methods from the 90s or early 2000s. So you'll see all of these attacks come again. So there is a lot of opportunity there. Uh, Again, so let's talk about how do you break into it. So yeah, cloud security is vendor specific, but and there are I would the major vendors are there. Certifications do help, but only if you apply, these certifications somewhere. I am not a big fan of certifications. I have really less certifications, and I do certifications if someone sponsors them. So uh, I I do not hold any CEH or SCP certifications now because I don't want to pay for it. But when you go for cloud security, I think if you're trying to pursue that, at least go with the basics. I would recommend that you understand the dev aspects of it. And security, you can pick it up anytime. One of the things that is a myth is virtualization technologies will go away. I strongly feel they will not go away. And the reason is you'll see a different version of them. Virtualization technologies are here to stay for a really, really long time. I feel the uh, the blurring. So earlier you saw that there were on-premise technologies and cloud, and they were typically separate, and you were seeing migrations. Now what I'm seeing is it's not about that. Businesses have realized that it's easier to operate in hybrid environments where they have some aspect on-premise and some aspect in the cloud. So you'll see these attacks of you'll have to understand how these technologies interact with each other. Uh, if you get into DevOps or if you have exposure to secure DevOps, there are really, really great opportunities for learning. You learn a lot of things if you want to start with cloud security. On IoT security, I would strongly recommend to learn about Android, iOS, or any other operating system and just look at their architectures and how they secure their firmware, how they sign their code, how do these applications run. Uh, I learned IoT security by experimenting. So by a good screwdriver set, start to attack, master attacks. So when I started to learn IoT security, I was doing one attack at a time. So if I was doing glitching attacks, I was just doing voltage glitching attacks. If I was trying to read firmware, I spent time just reading the firmware. So master these attacks because most of the times I did not come from an electronics background. So I just had to figure out how to, make these circuits, dump the firmware, and then profit. Uh, Invest in training if you can. Again, training helps, but practice would really, really help you more. So if you invest in, good trainings, not good training set, just start experimenting with something like buy the cheapest IoT device, and if you start reading and if you can do something with it, that's really, really great. Do not stop experimenting. So yeah, that is actually the end of my talk. I I guess I was on time. So, yep, I can open the forum for question and answers. If you want me to go over something again, I can always do that.
Okay, so I request my batchmates to post their questions and queries in the chat box. We are open to take it. Please feel free to do so. So we are having a question from Arun Sharma. He's asking, what are your views on a recent Facebook outage and how a social media giant remains offline for an approximately 6 hours?
Okay, so I mean, I cannot comment on like, so right off the bat, they're really, really smart people who work at Facebook. I looked at, I didn't look at like, I know some technical, it was basically, I think this is a risk that you have when you working on cloud. It was basically an error, not an error, it was the BGP protocol was to blame in that case. And it was a really, really complex, like they were up and running in 6 hours. That was really, really cool. I was expecting like if such an outage happened in any small company, they would have been down for a couple of hours. The kind of data Facebook moves and the time in which they were able to you know come up, I feel it was good. And these kind of things do happen. Like this is I don't think we should beat up businesses just because they were offline or, trillions of dollars or whatever. Uh, accidents do happen. Uh, I was happy they were up in 6 hours. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. I hope that clarifies Arun's question. And next we have a question from Rohan. Will we actually be able to secure IoT device in the near future?
I don't think we'll be able to do it. As much as I love to say that we will be able to, I think there's a really good opportunity for you to start your own company and start securing IoT devices, come up with a firewall solution. And there are a lot of startups that are doing that. And I think there's a really rich opportunity for everyone. I think so. I know a couple of companies that are working to just secure medical devices in IoT. There are some that are trying to secure your home devices, but you'll you'll see an explosion of these IoT devices with really no standards at all. Like you can literally buy a bulb for under $10, which runs on your Wi-Fi, which doesn't have any standards, and that thing will, I don't see anything changing in the future. So as much as I believe, I would want to assume that we'll see secure IoT devices. That won't happen. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
sir, there is one more question from my batchmate Gorang. He is asking that, sir, please help us in understanding something about mobile fog security over cloud IoT framework.
I don't really know what mobile fog security is. Uh, I
Gorang, can you?
like, like, can you please elaborate on what do you mean by fog security over cloud IoT framework?
Sure. I will request my team to give unmute right to Gorang so that he can unmute himself
Sure.
and then clarify about it. Gorang, you can unmute yourself.
And go to the next question, I think. Hardiya?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, Gorang, you're audible.
Good morning, sir. So, basically, what I wanted to know is like there are this. I'll be honest. This is one of my assignment questions, and I have already submitted it. I just wanted to know more because it interested me. This is one of my electives as well. And to be honest, yes, it is my assignment question, which I've already submitted and completed with the elective. But to know more about the topic, and since the topic was going on IoT frameworks and cloud security, so which is why I asked if you can provide me some insights on mobile fog. Basically, what mobile fog means is a typical layer between the cloud layer and the physical layer that processes the data at the remote level. So that is what I wanted to know more on. If you can provide some insights on.
Sure. So I think what you're talking about is a middleware. So I think if you're working on the cloud, like it's not it's nothing different from any website. So if you're moving data from your mobile application to a web service, there's nothing really different. I think there is I see a lot of bugs or a lot of misconfigurations in that case. So a really common thing is you've not authenticated your APIs, or if you think that no one can reverse engineer your mobile applications. And I take classes on Android security, and the first thing that I tell them is how to intercept traffic and how do you move, how do you get a list of APIs. So I think what you're so from what I understood from what you're saying, I think mobile security and as you say, fog security or cloud security, these two things have to be taken separately. Like if you secure your mobile application, that does not secure your cloud, uh, or vice versa. And the same goes for IoT devices. IoT is a separate beast altogether, but we'll have to work on securing both of these platforms separately. I hope this helps.
Yes. Thank you,
I
sir.
hope that answers your question, Garan.
Yes, Sheetal. Thank you for the insight, sir.
So moving on to
No
next
problem.
question.
Yeah.
Question is from how is the Indian cybersecurity market blooming, and what is your take on its future in India?
Uh, I, what is the? Can you come again? Can you?
Yes, sir, sure. The question is from Raghav. He's asking, how is the Indian cybersecurity market blooming, and what is your take on its future in India?
I think India has a really unique opportunity. I've seen like I think India at this point has this is what I've seen. It's like 4 or 5 years ago, there was this explosion where you saw a lot of talent. Like there was really less talent, and then you saw salaries and everything exponentially rise. I remember there were some really amazing salaries that were being posted. I think specifically for India and Indian security community, especially for offensive security, I see that most of the talent has become global. And this is because of COVID or whatever. But what we've realized is, and this goes especially for Indian security community, that uh, that demand is steadily growing. And I feel more than the Indian startups or Indian companies, we're seeing a lot of interest from companies outside of India. So US, Canada, Europe, I see a lot of people moving to those companies. The reason is I, like there's obviously less talent outside, but what Indian security brings, like Indian community brings, is really unique in terms of our work ethics and the way we handle problems. And we do have a holistic approach towards things. So I think the future is bright. Uh, Getting into security is hard, and there's this whole different that's a different beast altogether. But I think for now we'll see a lot of growth in the future, and it might not come from Indian IT companies, but it'll come from somewhere for sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your insights. And we have one more question from Ronak. He's asking, in IoT security, many devices are having default security by design. How challenging this is to secure from a security professional point of view?
What do you mean by default security? Like, uh, so I need some more insights on what do you mean by. So I can see the questions now. So
No,
if you can just explain, like,
no
what
issues,
do you
sir.
mean
We
by?
will
Sir,
we will move
yeah,
on to next. Okay, Ronak, if you're there, yeah, you can.
Yes, sir. Like many devices which are like they are not innovating to it and they have some inbuilt security features. So, like if there is any new recent type of attack, they are not able to update themselves and they are keep on exploiting their clients. So that is what I meant by security by default.
Okay. Uh, so how challenging? Okay. So I mean, it is. I think it is. So let me put it this way. It is challenging, but the bigger problem is the kind of capabilities that devices are. So it's really subjective. So like I know my IoT bug. The worst thing that can happen to this is it'll stop working or it'll crash. But if I have a router that can be hacked, that can actually intercept traffic and move from point A to point B. That can divert my traffic, and that is what you need to understand. It's the amount, like it is difficult to secure this, but the bigger problem is that what happens when these things are hacked. So what I would do is if it's if it's so what I've seen is what businesses have done in the past is if they cannot secure a device, they just stop support for it altogether, or they'll kill the product. And that is something that I feel you'll see coming a lot in the future. So you'll see, and I've seen this in medical industry. There were legacy devices that were being used for like 15, 20 years. And at one point, the vendor said, we cannot support any of this. So I see in most of these times, like if it's old technology, the vendor just gives up and they say, buy a new one. Uh, but we're still not seeing, like, I don't see any few, like, to secure really old IoT devices. That's really hard. I don't see that really often, and that's why this is a really good opportunity. So if you want a startup or something, this is something that you can really look at.
Thank you, sir. One last question from you. I can see a lot of enthusiasm from my batchmates. They are just having so many questions. So one last for you. It is a question from Rajat Singh Rathore. He is asking, apart from IoT and cloud, what can be the new upcoming technologies that we can expect in the coming 5 to 10 years?
So I think uh, so I think there will be a lot of technologies, and I cannot predict what kind of technologies would be there. But I think cloud and IoT will empower or will push the development of these technologies. So let's say blockchain. And if you talk of distributed computing, or if you're talking of cryptocurrency or anything of that sort, you would need some sort of infrastructure to run. So you can either create it from scratch, but you can also create it all of these things on cloud. So I think cloud and IoT would be fundamental technologies that will power any other technology moving forward. So if you were talking about, uh, and I can say about Azure or even for AWS, like so Azure uh, push like Azure, there's a service called Azure Quantum, which is basically targeting quantum computing. So the technology is quantum computing, but it's being powered through cloud. So I think cloud will change all of these. It will accelerate a lot of technologies, and this goes even like it goes beyond just tech. Like what we saw when COVID really hit was an acceleration, and there was a shortage of cloud resources because these companies who were developing vaccines, they wanted cloud resources to power their technology. So this is a kind of cause and effect that you'll see. So I cannot predict the technologies, but I'm like 100% sure it will be powered through cloud.
Okay, with that, I would like to say thank you so much, sir, for such great insights. We got to know the importance of hardware and cloud security and other opportunities where we can secure the infrastructure. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Now we'll be having a 5 to 10 minutes bio break. So I request all of you to freshen up and kick in some coffee and get back quickly because we are going to witness an amazing session ahead. I request all of you to stay in the meeting room. No need to leave.
Thank you,
What do I
Anirudh,
do
from
now?
my end for all the lovely insights. And I think we have a couple of more questions which we'll probably email to you and we'll give the answers to the students.
Or I can hang out right now. It's evening for me, so
Yeah, I
I
know.
don't need my coffee. So yeah, I can actually
We
hang
will
out
soon
and
be wishing you good night, probably in some more time.
right.
Thank you for joining in from Seattle. Yeah.
No problem. So if you want me to hang out like 10 minutes, I can answer some questions. That's fine.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. So if the students are around, I think there was one question around zero trust security.
I was about to ask that.
Yeah, so Anirudh Chaudhary has been asking a question when you're trying to secure workloads using microsegmentation and other techniques that we see in zero trust security. Is it really going to help the organizations is what he wants to know.
Yeah. I've seen also, is this as an application isolation and network segregation? How well is it implemented in the industry? Is this question, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it's surprisingly this is being picked up. Like I've seen this massive trend of companies really using this. And this was surprising for me because uh, I was on forefront of some of these things when we were looking at attacks. Uh, I think application isolation, network segregation, this makes a lot of sense. And this is not just for security, even for performance and just designing good applications. Uh, there's there's a lot of overhead that you remove if you just give applications their space and they move. I've seen it across like all industries actually right now. Like I've seen it across a lot of products. I think new products or services that are being built. And I have colleagues who work at Amazon, at Google. Microservices, network segregation, application isolation, that is like the number one thing. It's easy to write code, it's easy to maintain code, you can swap components easily. And I think you're going to see a lot of these things moving forward.
Thank you, sir.
Can
And
I ask
there
you-
is also, sorry,
Can I
but
ask you
there is
one
also one more interesting question from Abhishek. He is asking how challenging is implementing defense in depth security in cloud?
I think it's actually depends. So from a technical perspective, if you've taken care of all of these things in design, it's easy. But I think it's more of a what I realized it's more of a political question than a technical question because you've seen. So what I've seen is you have these services that have worked for like n number of years, and then you have people who have like in my experience who have like 10, 20, 30 years of experience, and when you come up and tell them, oh yeah, this thing runs as root, I think you should run as a limited user, and this guy would be like, I've been doing this for 30 years. So there is definitely this challenge of implementing defense in depth practices, but I think the more that you learn, the more you're able to show impact. And this is one cool thing about cloud because uh, you make one mistake and suddenly all of the data is out. So I think we'll see a lot of these defense in depth practices because of the sheer amount of attacks being implemented better.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah. So what do you think? Perimeter security is diminishing now? Are we moving more on to endpoint security or zero trust?
I think yes, but I think still perimeter security is going to is I don't think it's going to diminish, but I think the perimeter will change. So earlier we were talking about physical boundaries and all of this. Now those boundaries will remain. I think, but we'll now introduce another a component of cloud. So they are going to be a little blurred, but I think it'll remain for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sheetal, we have
Thank you for taking all this.
we have
Yes,
a
ma'am, go
panelist here, so probably Anirudh, if you're fine, we could introduce you to our panelists
Sure.
because Lalit
Sure,
sir
sure.
also was giving some feedback about the answer you gave. Sheetal, maybe you can just briefly introduce.
Yes.
We have the break.
So,
Yeah, Lalit.
yes, Lalit sir is here.
Yeah,
Sir is yeah. Hello, sir. Welcome.
thank you.
Yes.
So Anirudh, I was listening to your some explanation, and I think it was fantastic. Very interesting points that you put up, and I just put it on chat because I couldn't resist replying on that some of the examples. But the question on perimeter is very intriguing. I think the definition of perimeter itself is changing. That I think what Anirudh meant by blurring. So the perimeter is no longer out there. Perimeter is really EDR kind of thing that is happening.
Also, sir, I would like to introduce to Shyam Sundar sir.
Yes, and we have Kushagra too.
Also, we have Shomiran sir here.
Yeah.
And Vikas sir. All they are our panelists for today. Welcome all.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Morning, guys.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, folks.
So we can have a little audio and video check. I'll be formally introducing all of you. So we are having a 5 to 10 minutes break, and after that we'll resume our session. So I wanted to introduce you all to our keynote speaker for today, Anirudh Duggal sir.
Hey, Anirudh. Good to meet you again.
That's good. But for him, it's a good night. I think that's what he was mentioning. He's in Seattle right now.
Oh, okay. Hi, Anirudh. You're on mute, I guess.
So Anirudh, I think you're on mute.
Mute. Yeah, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I cannot unmute myself. I don't know why. It's like
Oh.
if I mute myself, then someone has to unmute me.
That's how the endpoint security works, you see.
So good, Anirudh. While I was listening to you, as I said, if you quickly introduce yourself to us, of course, Khush has met you, but I didn't have your background, so that would, I think, be a good thing. Please.
So yeah, a quick background. So uh, I am from India. I used to work. I moved to US about 4 years ago. I was working for Philips Healthcare before this, and I was working on medical device security. I used to hack like really cool devices, X-ray machines, MRI machines, and patient monitors and stuff like that. And as while I was working there, I did some research on how do you attack medical devices, and I was fortunate enough it was picked up at some cool conferences. So I got to travel the world. I spoke at Black Hat. I was in Russia, Taiwan. Spoke in a couple of conferences in India. Then I decided to pursue a master's in cybersecurity. I wanted to do a PhD, but then I realized it's a lot of work. So I did my master's. And then after working for, while I was working in US, I was involved in the medical device community again, did some, we worked some really cool projects with hospitals. We did some work with the FDA, and then I moved. And now I work for Microsoft in the Azure data space. So any data product, we hack them, we scrutinize them. So right now I work for Microsoft. Yeah, and I do. In all of this, I was doing IoT, medical device, mobile security, and cloud. So it's a little bit of everything.
Fantastic. So were you at HIMSS this time or any time before?
Pardon?
Were you at HIMSS this time? Because HIMSS is that
No.
health.
Yeah. I was not at HIMSS. So yeah, I wish I could go there, but I would have been there. But we used to run the DEF CON biohacking village.
Okay.
So yeah, I was doing that.
Fantastic.
Now it's time we should, sorry to intervene, sir, but I think we should resume our session.
Sure.
Thank you. So welcome back, everyone. I hope all of you are back. So let's resume our event. I'm glad to welcome our panelists for today. Though we had to connect this event virtually, but still with everybody's support and motivation, we are able to bring the experts from all over the world to this common ground. I feel lucky that I'm going to listen to all of them live, and I hope you guys are thrilled. Okay, then. So without further delay, I'd like to welcome our first panelist for today, Sir Shyam Sundar Ramaswamy. He is a senior research scientist with Cisco Research and Efficacy team. Sir is a two-time TEDx speaker, a teacher of cybersecurity, and author of the book, It's Your Digital Life. He has delivered talks at several conferences such as Black Hat at Las Vegas, Qubit Forensics 2020, Cisco Live, Hackfest, DeepSec, and in several universities and IEEE forums in India. He has also taught an advanced malware attacks and defenses class at Stanford University's cybersecurity program. And he runs a mentoring program called Being Robin, where he mentors students all over the globe on cybersecurity. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody.
We all have to start somewhere, and doing something is better than doing nothing at all. Start small so you don't get discouraged and give up. Remember, it is all about consistency. With that quote, I would like to welcome our second panelist for today, Sir Vikas Kedia. He is currently the Chief Executive Officer of MobiTrail, an enterprise mobility product and solution-based software company, and a certain empaneled IT security audit company. In his early career, Sir started following his passion for developing mobile games, which were distributed with operators and publishers worldwide. He then transformed the organization from an engagement model to an enterprise solution provider, where he learned to focus on business outcomes. That focused approach, along with a strong team of MobiTrail, helped him to deliver business values to India's marquee names who kept coming back for more and more products and services. Welcome, sir. Now, rolling the dice towards our third panelist, let me introduce you all to Sir Shomiran Dasgupta. Sir is the founder and CEO of DNIF. Sir also founded Net Monastery in 2002 and has been building threat detection systems for close to 2 decades. He built DNIF in 2016 with a vision to create a company that delivers high-quality attack detection products and services to its customers. Sir is also an eminent speaker at many industry events. Events and venues that have hosted him include TEDx, the Data Security Council of India, and the Security Architecture Conference. Interesting, isn't it? Welcome, sir. Now, talking about our fourth panelist. She is the founder and director at Cleap Technologies Private Limited, She is ISO 27001 lead auditor, having in-depth knowledge of IT regulatory compliance, excellent organizational leadership, budget management, team building, negotiation, and product management qualifications. She is providing services around IT consulting, ISO audit, risk management, compliance audit, GRC, IT assessment, security audit, information security, BCP planning and management, support services, web design and development, and digital marketing. She is also known by her colleagues for solid reliability and a strong work ethics. So let's welcome Madam Shivani Sharma. Welcome, ma'am. Let me introduce you all to our fifth panelist, Sir Lalit Popli. Currently, he is the Chief Operation Officer at Arcon. Sir is having more than 20 years of experience in the field of information security. He is skilled in retail, sales, customer relationship management, asset management, and business transformation. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Lastly, I would like to welcome the moderator for today's panel discussion, Sir Kushagra Mehra. Currently, Sir is a senior sales engineer at Scale-Up. He is having more than 5 years of experience in the industry. He is a subject matter expert at deception and has worked on many at-scale enterprise deployment, including Fortune 500s, to design campaigns and mitigate blended threats, and to reduce the attack surface available to advanced adversaries. He holds master's degree in computer security and resilience from Newcastle University. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me.
I will like to request my batchmates that the chat box will be enabled after the panel discussion. So feel free to put your chats or questions after that. Without further delay, I request Kushagra sir to take over. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Sheetal. All right, folks. So we'll have quite a bit to discuss today on the subject of ideas for how we can have legal frameworks. We keep discussing technical protections all the time, but what are sort of legal and policy frameworks we can have to protect to protect regular folks? What are some of the considerations that need to go in? Of course, technical considerations will go into, but what are the ideas that need to inform our approach in a regulatory framework, right? So obviously we've got a panel with quite a variety of expertise, but what I'd probably suggest is, Shamran, if we could kick off with you, right? Because you've seen various kinds of attacks on the enterprise side, but a lot of those obviously leverage the same weaknesses that a human is exploited, right? You exploit the human through some sort of trust that they have in maybe an attachment they receive, or there are other approaches that essentially exploit the human element. So what's the common thread you've seen throughout all of these attacks that you've dealt with in the past?
I think the bigger, thank you so much for first, thank you everybody, and good morning. Before I jump in. So I think one very key aspect of attack trends across time. So I mean, I've spent 20 years doing this, so I can give you that timeline view of where the world was and where it is going right now. So I mean, spectrum wise, we always, earlier we focused on services and the servers, where attacks were focused on applications, services, and servers. Then at this point in the last 20 years, it moved from there closer to the endpoint. And what's the end? Why is the endpoint so interesting? The endpoint so interesting because it's been driven by a human being, right? So I think human beings are surprisingly, I mean, you'd be extremely surprised the factor of gullibility that people have, and that includes us. So even the smart guys. So I mean, there are times where everybody gets conned, and you are fooled to click on something at different levels. So this, I think, this problem is not going to go away, right? I mean, we had about 15 years back, we had a T-shirt. We said that social engineering expert. I mean, to that, because there's no patch for human stupidity, right? So that's never going to go away, right? And so for all practical purposes, no matter how much awareness you have and what kind of legal framework we have, we still will find a hole to fall into. Right. So I think that's going to remain. But in terms of cybersecurity and the technology aspect of it, we've been able to walk um, quite a quite a quite a bit now, and we've moved forward in terms of capability of detection and being able to bring all these data points together to see the larger picture. I mean, I hope I'm making sense. Kush, you want to chime in and course correct if you feel like.
No, I definitely
Yeah.
think you're talking about the same things that I'm sure a lot of the other panelists related to. Like they've seen it from various other points of view as well. I'm sure. But it's probably worth getting Shaman on one of the points you touched on, where because no matter what applications we secure and whatnot, at the end of the day, that the human is at the other end of the connection, and that's probably what you want to exploit. We've seen all sorts of attacks, stuff that gets users to open malicious documents. Sometimes you have malware that will, emulate a keyboard, because no matter what, the keyboard is something you have to trust input from. Right, and you can use that as a workaround for those who know about the USB rubber ducky, for example. What are some of the other ways you've seen attackers work around the technical controls or policy controls and essentially exploit that element?
So good morning, first of all. Thank you so much again for this opportunity. Super happy to be with part of everybody in this panel. As actually Shimoran was explaining, right? Social engineering has evolved. And the shocking fact of these crimes like Emotet, trick bots, and all these threat actors, right? They do the same social engineering trick by sending you an invoice email, and you have to click on that and then you get infected. It's the same trick for the last 13 and a half years. I'm not kidding. Just read it right. 13 and a half years. Even though we have EDR solutions, Yara rules, a lot of these firewall rules, the way they've evolved is totally different. Okay. Now, the social engineering trick remains the same. You have to open an email. The sectors have actually changed. So it was just targeting corporates. Now it's becoming small scale industries, supply chains, institutions, BEC, business email compromises. But the tricks they use to get inside is totally evolved, and all thanks to human beings, right? We just fall for one thing or the other. I've been seeing a bunch of very interesting stuff where the era of everybody knows how a macro works, right? Have you seen a Jack in the Box? So when you open the Jack in the Box, the clown comes and claps his hands. That's basically a macro. Do you push the Jack in the Box again and it opens, it comes out. That's basically a macro in the Word document. When you open the Word document, it does a bunch of automated stuff for you. Formula, charts, a bunch of stuff. And that's how this whole thing works. There's macros being used everywhere. Now, what's evolved in the last 2 years is there are cyber attacks with macros and without macros. Now, that's the most shocking part. Without macros is just they're embedding all these URLs into the tree of a Word document, and it's become extremely stealthy. It looks like a normal Word document that's opening, but it downloads a malware, a lot of steganography. I'll probably talk about those later. And this is how it's evolved. Tons of stuff. And there is no cyber criminals had some sort of etiquettes and laws, but they're not following it anymore. They used to just drop one threat by one actor, but one actor is dropping multiple threats today. That's all thanks to this dark web and the sharing of these techniques. So yeah, this is how they've evolved. And as Shmoran was actually saying, that social engineering versus on a t-shirt, now it's actually everywhere. So it just lives with us. So you have to be pretty careful with that.
Thanks, Shyam. I think that's well put, where, it's gone from a t-shirt to a whole lot more in the past, 13, 15, 20 years. But that's a lot of what Shyam was talking about is, on the desktops, like a lot of macros and whatnot will execute in environments like that. They'll sort of work past a lot of our defenses. And in desktops, it's generally a more open environment anyway, right? Your OSs like Windows and Mac OS and stuff like that, even Linux, as much of a reputation as it does have for a lower attack surface. But these days, because of the prevalence of mobile devices, you're also seeing a lot of attacks propagate in that direction, right? And that's probably something that Vikas, you can speak to much more strongly, right? You've been doing a bunch of work in that space. What's something that you've seen in terms of various kinds of attacks on the mobile side?
Sure. Thanks, Kush. A very good morning to everyone. Today, if you see the overall market share, I mean, you have around 7.10 billion mobile devices, out of which 80% of devices are smartphones. And on these smartphones, there could be, again, if I were to look at threads, it could be an application-related thread, it could be a device-related thread, it could be a network-related thread, or it could be a mobile web related thread, right? So the thread could come from all these four sides, right? And when you say a mobile application thread, it could be just a downloading of an app which is not coming from a legitimate source, right? So whenever I download an application, it says me that's coming from an unknown source. And with that unknown source, it could essentially have steal your personal information which is there on your device. It could be your photos, it could be every information which resides on your device. The second is the web-based mobile application, where the security threats could come through a web-based module where, people can actually go to infected sites, and from that infected sites, it could download a malicious content on your device. The third thing is a mobile security, right? Which when I talk about is could be a network based, which is especially very risky because again, a lot of your encrypted data can be used when you use a public Wi-Fi network. And lastly, the mobile device itself, which could be a loss of a device. So if you have lost a device, the hacker gets an access to the entire hardware, right? So again, very important data of yours can be compromised. So I think these are the four ways, and with the kind of penetration the mobile devices have, I think it's very scary because you have apps which can basically give you a fake GPS. You have an application which can be there in the room, which could be a boardroom, and it can listen to every conversation. And today, with AI models coming into place, it can also specifically tell who was the speaker of that conversation, and that entire conversation which is being carried in that boardroom is being pushed onto a cloud, and you can it's a boardroom meeting, right? So before even getting it disclosed, the entire information is out.
Yeah, thanks for that, because all sort of salient points where, I mean, there are things like boardroom meeting devices. That is a very good point. That's stuff that nobody even thinks about often, even as a computer, right? But everything with a chip in it these days is hackable. Like, I think Bruce Schneier had a lovely book on this, where he says, I think it's called "Click Here to Kill Everybody" or something. It's a really provocative title, but it says the same thing. But we've been talking a lot, like with Shamran and Sham, with Vikas, a lot about sort of what's been happening on the technical attack side, some of the shortcomings that we'll need to address, some of the attack surfaces that have existed. But Shivani, I'm going to turn to you at the stage, like on the governance side, right? What's the current state of the industry? And maybe you can give us a sense, help inform before we think about where we want to go. Where do we currently stand, right? What are the shortcomings that you've seen in the industry currently?
Right. So, when we talk about governance, risk, and compliance, so we still are lacking in the areas where we need to actually fully implement such kind of frameworks in the company. Because when a organization starts, be of any size, like be you have 5 people, maybe it may have 60 people, or maybe even 1,000 people. So these frameworks have been designed in such a way that it can be implemented in any organization. But still, we take a step back thinking like, okay, we can do it at a later stage. But we generally tend to forget these frameworks and these ISO standards or GDPR or HIPAA. They provide a very comprehensive frameworks to the organization. They actually formulate their policies and procedures, which should be set at the initial phase of any organization, because those, even if you have to set out policies for your information security department, if you have to lay a policy for your IT department, your HR department, these frameworks have very elaborative and extensive data which you can be implementing in your organization. So I think still there are companies who are going on, like I have personally worked with a lot of companies in Middle East, in Europe, and in US, where they take it very seriously, and there are few which do not. I believe that there is a gap between awareness, because when we talk about resiliency, operational resilience, so people think, okay, we have a team, we can work on it, our planning is solid, and I don't need this because I already have a team which are working for it. So that's where BCB plannings also come in place. Latest example, COVID, 2 years online or working online. It seems so impossible. Students even work having online classes. So that's how resilient organization should be in terms of governance, where they hit by something and then they have a plan to recover from it. So that's how we should gauge. And I think such kind of awareness is required. Companies should be adopting it. There are who are doing it very well, and there are who needs a lot of help and support. So that's how people from consulting like us come in and help them develop such kind of policies for them.
Yeah, definitely. I've worked with a lot of folks on the consulting side, and that's probably the best thing you. You're the culprit.
Your other computer is my computer, bug crowd.
No,
Nice.
I was like,
No.
not today. So
So we can
So
all blame
Sham, I
Sham
was
for this.
thinking, like Kushagra was telling me like my network is bad. I said I just finished talking about it and it just went off.
Sheetal, we can start. Yes, ma'am. We can start. There are a good number of participants. People are joining. We'll be admitting them meanwhile. And Kushagra, sir, you can take over.
Great. Thanks, Sheetal. So, to sort of pick up from the point that Shivani was closing out on, that's something I was just saying that, Shivani was talking about how we contribute in our capacity as consultants, where if we develop a capability, it's only right that, we help as many organizations as possible to the extent our employment allows, to help sort of ensure that our skills are applied more broadly. And that's probably something that, of all the panelists on the call, that's probably something Lalit has more experience than maybe all the rest of us put together in various capacities. So Lalit, can you give us a sense of like zooming out, right? Big picture. What is the current state of the industry beyond just specific regulations, beyond just specific tech? What have you seen over the course of your experience?
Yeah, so that's a nice way of saying I'm one of the old panelists. Without saying that you're old, I like it. But I mean, fun aside, what is actually, I just roll back into some of the points which Vikas mentioned and Sham and Shivani mentioned. See, the challenge, what we are seeing is that people, for want of convenience, actually don't want to be secure. They break the security themselves. I mean, look at all of us. We have people who give their biometric easily, whether it is to Apple or Google. I mean, you have your facial recognition, your fingerprints, and everything all over the place. We are keeping all the records. We don't know where it is. We are hoping that it is safe. And still, we talk about security. So there are only two things that is actually working. And Shivani made a very valid point, and she put out some, regulations, whether by SEBI, IRDA, RBI, or GDPR, HIPAA. I think what is happening is corporates, which actually have to do business and they have to adhere to the rule of the land, are the ones who are investing in security. uh, any other environment, I don't see people looking into security as seriously as unless forced by regulator. I think the carrot portion is not working. The stick is the only portion that is working. And that is a really a kind of a state, because what is happening is we are looking at security as a cost, and that is hurting all of us. and we want someone to protect us. At the same time, we are the perpetuators of sharing our information, data, and whatnot. And we expect someone, maybe a product, an application, a policy, trying to protect us. And that is where I think the dichotomy of the whole discussion lies. You started very wisely by saying, human at the end point. Yes, of course, human is at the end point, and we kind of do everything wrong that is possible, and we want someone to protect us in spite of us doing wrong. However, now with IoT, and the previous speaker said about IoT, IoT is exploding like crazy. So now no more as an identity, as a human identity only. You are going to have machine identity, and that explosion is much more scarier than what a human identity. Human identity, as you said, there's no cure for stupidity, mistakes. That's okay, but the IoT world is going to be a different ball game. And are we ready for it? Is the organizations ready for it? I really don't think so. I think highly regulated organizations, no choice, want to do business, depends on license as an entry point, are into it. But outside that, I think we all know what is happening, and that is going to be a worry. Today, Vikas mentioned about downloading of apps. We are downloading apps which we don't even understand why we are downloading, because someone has told us download, and then we kind of cry that our data has gone away. We have celebs who say iPhotos have been hacked. Now, who has made that hacking possible? Yeah, there are some serious stuffs, and Sham, I'm sure, will touch upon it, how you can get into it, the steganography and the other things that come with it. But I think it's more simple. We still use password 123 as a default password. I mean, you don't need to even crack most of the password. You just type in, and 50% probability you're going to get it right. And that's what is happening overall in the space. So if you compartmentalize and say organizations, highly regulated organizations, no choice, doing the stuff. Individuals, some of us may be better, but then you'll be out of time. I mean, imagine today if someone says, please add us into WhatsApp. Like we were to do a meeting kind of before, and we said, okay, let's make a WhatsApp group. And I say, no, sorry, I have a feature phone and I'm not on WhatsApp. I mean, everyone will look at you at like, which world are you? I mean, you have gone into Flickr, not even Flickr days. What was that Google product before Facebook, which just died a natural
Orchid.
death? Orchid. So you're part of the Orchid community, and even before that. But that is the only place you will be there, because if you look at the Pegasus point, actually, the way, in spite of all the possible safety that you take, if you have a mobile phone or any device where you are connected to the closest network, you are found out. I mean, there's no way you can avoid it. So that's another area. And then we have this huge love with startups, and we say, okay, every one of us is part of some startup or the other. But startups themselves are into a situation where the security comes the last. They are mostly about running funding, but security is hardly thought about. And then at the last moment, when the funding starts to come, and then they are said, okay, now you have to be secure, and that's the time they work. So is security by design? Definitely not. Is security forced into the design? Yes. And that's, I think, where we are at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's actually well put, that security. I think there's two really great points you made there. One is that security is often bolted on after the fact, and no matter how strongly you work on it, if you're bolting it on after the fact, if you're not sort of building it in from the get-go, there's only so much effect you can have, right? And the other one, to your point about applications and biometric security and all those other attack surfaces, is that we're adding attack surfaces faster than we can defend the old ones, let alone the new ones. Right, so we're just adding capabilities faster than we can defend them, and that's probably something because you've seen a lot of, I'm sure, right, where folks like Lalit was saying, like, I'm told to download this, really cool new app that my friend says does something awesome, it changes my face or whatever, and I don't really care that it's shipping my data off there or it's gathering photos from my phone or all of that.
Yeah.
Have you seen that sort of changing? Do you see the average person sort of getting more sensitized to that, or does that require regulation to fix?
Today, if you see a lot of like Apple has stopped something called as the UDID. So UDID is a 40 alpha, 40 digit alphanumeric, ID, which resides on your device, which allows you to understand this device is Apple device. So they had stopped this process maybe around when they launched iOS 6 itself. And then you do not have any device binding with the app, right? Now, if you see, there are some applications like a calculator app, right? A calculator app asking you for a permission of a location and your contact list. Can you just think about why would a calculator app, it just needs a calculation, right? Why is he asking you for a permission? It's a free app, right? But it is asking you for permission of your contact list and secondly your location. So I think it's very important that people should understand what is the purpose of that application and does that permission really is suitable for that application, and essentially a lot of these apps are getting downloaded like still restricts, right? You can't do a side loading of a iOS application. So either you have to go to an app store, and I think that's the most, it's the most genuine place because Apple does most scrutiny, and of course Google has also started doing that. But even today, you can download an APK from a link, right? You can download an APK, accept it like an unknown source, and install the application. So I think it's very important that people should be not going through the store way rather than a direct installation, and they should read these permissions very carefully because I don't see any reason why a calculator app should ask you for a location or a contact list. So it's very important that these kind of understanding should be there because a lot of malicious code or trojans are actually getting transmitted on the user's device through some of these applications.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It sounds ridiculous to us, as people in the security industry, that why would anybody ever give a calculator permissions to location or contacts or whatever else, right? Or why would somebody ever set password 123 as their password? But for those people, it's just about convenience, right? They just see the security measures as getting in their way, not as enabling them. So they see them as a hurdle to overcome. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of ugliness that happens from people trying to overcome stuff like this, right? I think I'm just working around something that's getting in my way, but what I'm actually doing is opening a gigantic hole for attackers in my machine. Can you give us an idea of some of the things you've seen before we actually start talking about how we can go to defending against stuff like this?
So like I would just thank Lalit, Shivani, and Vikas for making my exam a lot easy with all those points just bubbling and giving it to me. There are a lot of good points that I probably cover in this. Okay, see, when Lalit was actually talking about a lot of these frameworks, the aftermath of it, and Vikas is talking about the mobile security, and then Shivani was talking about COBIT and HIPAA. So I probably want to cover two extremes. Okay, one is the ad industry, and then another is the compliance part of things. Okay, see, today we are in a world where, as Vikas and Lalit was mentioning, right, the fact that there is no stringent checks on these things. You install an app, you do a bunch of stuff. But there are a lot of unknowns in the knowns today is what I'm probably going to talk about. So you install an app, a malware attack has become 10 times more silent what it used to be not 1 year back, 30 days back. Okay, so it's extremely silent and heavily targeted. Two things are apps, like the messenger apps. It's pretty shocking. Okay, so a malware that runs on your computer, where we have people who are fancily using Telegram and WhatsApp on your desktop, it is exfiltrating, which means sending out your stolen credit card and other important details via Telegram and WhatsApp without your knowledge. And it's end-to-end encrypted. You want to install Signal, it'll still use whatever it wants. So this is the unknown that most of us are not seeing it, and this is where the frameworks come into picture. There is no regulation on these things, right? Nobody owns this up. There's no responsibility for these things. So I can probably quickly, okay, don't get me wrong, quickly spin up a malware within 15 minutes, which can steal data silently from your computer with your permission and exfiltrate via Signal or Telegram, just like this. Okay, one. The second thing that we need to have, as Shivani was mentioning, right? HIPAA is basically for Health Information Protection Act, and COBIT is more of a framework. Do we have similar to that for ads? Now, this is where this I think Lalit was saying that steganography. I think I'll probably cover that bit, right? The ads are infecting your system. This is actually called as malvertising. And these malware threat actors are using a lot of images that keep spreading around. An image contains pixels. A pixel can contain a malware code. So you can open an image and get infected. And also there's a trend where these malware actors are exfiltrating or sending out data via pixels of images. This could be your, don't get me wrong, this could be your family group where you send some random good morning message, which could be a malware. Or any free site that you're reading something or a survey, you see an ad on that, that could be a malware. So that could open a back door. So there is no regulation or a compliance for the ad industry in the country because it's a heavily messed up, a sector which you just get a lot of money, but there's no standard for it. It's as good as establishing a contact with someone for 3 months, a good contract and a goodwill for 3 months, and you can start infecting malicious ads. And also just quickly want to quote before we move on to that thing is next the app regulation that Vikas was also talking about, right? We don't have stringent rules in the country or none of these mobile developers, as he was saying that why should a calculator need all of these things, right? I cannot name this. The person wanted me to talk about this wherever I go. A friend of mine's father has lost 95 lakhs of his life savings on a Bitcoin scam. So this is basically a social engineering trick that where they say, sorry, this email is not meant for you, but I'm actually doing cryptocurrency. They had actually duped a popular working site as a mobile app. As Vikas was mentioning, it took all the permissions, it installed a profile. And for us, I mean, I'm not generalizing. Since we are very careful, we store our PIN numbers. We store very smartly a PIN number as a contact with the last 4 digits. And everybody's PAN number, Aadhaar number, everything is there in the phone. Now, this profile would look into everything, can generate a combination of these things. Now, do we have rules or regulations or laws to protect this? Now, that's the problem here. These are the unknowns that we fail to see in these knowns. Even though we have a good protection across the globe, this is becoming a serious issue today. And people should be, enlightened and spoken about. So next time when you're forwarding an image, never send a good morning to just call them up and say good morning. Don't send random forwards. So just be very, very careful. And also be very careful when you install your WhatsApp, Signal, all of these things. Don't trust anybody.
Them from the right source.
Yeah, that's
Right.
that's the whole point.
So, Kushagra, I just want to like top it up on
So actually,
Sham's
we'll come to you only, Shivani, next. I actually want to ask you, you were talking about consulting, right? Let's give you the biggest client that anybody is here is going to have. Let's give you the whole country as a consulting client and say, this is our problem. How would you help us fix it? What are your inputs?
So, thank you for that, but I'm a very small speck in the field of information security because this is so vast and this is so expansive, that once you start going into it, you just deep dive into it and there is no end to it. I just want to sum up few points Mr. Lalit said about, human factor, and also Vikas said people downloading certain apps, and also Sham mentioned there is no check, people giving random permissions like allow. Absolutely perfect. So I want to take you all to the grassroots level over here, which is the human. So we are all eliminating the human factor over here because to err is human. Human is made in a way he or she, or they won't understand this is something which we are not supposed to do. It is lucrative. We will go for it. This is how they fall in trap of social engineering. So when we say do not install third party APKs or do not install this, but we will still go ahead and install that. Even we know that we shouldn't be doing it. So over here, I would want to say as individuals and as organizations, we should be training our people because people are the first line of defense. which are protecting our organization, which are protecting oneself from such kind of activities, like the malware spreading or installation of malware. Yes, it happens. There are few people still, who gets a pop-up on their Gmail, like you have 1 crore rupees, send in your bank details. They will be like, wow, I'm a lucky draw winner, I should send that. So that is where you should pause, think, and restrict yourself. Now, when we are in security, we understand. There are scams. Like even my mom, she calls me, she tells me like, "Beta, I have received message. They are giving part-time jobs in this, and they're asking me to transfer this much." I was like, "No, these are not genuine." So we as human, we should be educating, spreading awareness of such kind. First of all, on organizational level, investing in training of people where they understand what are basics of to safeguarding yourself. Most of the times when we see people are falling prey to such kind of attacks are because of phishing emails, honeypotting. So people fall prey to those things first. So if we empower them, we hold people accountable for the things that they do, and also train them with latest happenings, with a regularized framework, or maybe best practices, from different famous frameworks like NIST frameworks. They always tell you to to identify, you detect, then you mm, respond to it, and then you try to mitigate it. Because risk element is always there in whatever work you do. So we have to eliminate that risk. First, we need to accept that risk. Okay, this is a risk, and then only you can eliminate it. So wouldn't be taking much time, but Mr. Lalit said, like, when we are a startup, so there are security is enforced, that we have to do it. So I just want to pitch in myself for a couple of minutes here. Like, I am a startup founder. I founded my company last year in 2020 when pandemic just hit. And first thing I wanted to do is become an ISO certified company, and ISO 27001 ISMS certified, because I wanted to establish that credibility in the market. I wanted to establish to other people and other organizations, like, we are certified. Even we are a group of 10 people running this company, still we can be ISO certified. So any size of organization can be. So you can also adopt this. So rightly said, Sham, like, there are no regulations on like adware or something in specific, but yes, there are a lot of frameworks which tells you how you can avoid such kind of malwares or phishing attacks. Companies are going for endpoint protections, protecting the networks, installing IDS, intrusion detection system, so that they can catch, they can act on the breach when it happens. At least if they're not catching it at that point and instance, they have a recovery plan for that. So that recovery plan comes in when you have a set framework, the ISO framework, or maybe any other framework regulating in that particular country. Now Europe has GDPR. India is also going to get up their own bill, like PDP bill. It is still not passed, but it is still in action. So once we get it, I think India would also be in the market saying, like, we also have data protection and data privacy policies. So right start is very important in any field.
So you know what? I'm actually going to pick up on that thread, and go back to Lalit before I go to Vikas and say, Lalit, that's something you've worked on, right? You're helping a lot of clients figure out how to adhere to regulatory requirements. That is when regulatory requirements exist. Like Shivani just highlighted, in a lot of these cases, like sure, we for example, we don't currently have anything for privacy, right? We also have relatively lax cybersecurity regulations. Even the ones that exist aren't enforced too strongly. So what are some mechanisms that you think we can set up that might be better, that add to what capabilities we already have in terms of regulatory and legal frameworks?
So, Kush, I think the key point we have to keep in mind about regulation is that there is a regulation and there is the enforcement of the regulation. The
Yeah.
challenge is hardly in regulation. I mean, today, without the IDPR or PDP, as Shivani is saying, there is enough provisions under the IT Security Act or IT Act that we have 2012 modified that protects us from a lot of things. The challenge is these implementation of those rules, the regulations. Now, even if you take a best of I just quickly bounce one idea off and then come back again. It was that when Shivani mentioned startups and she went into it because she's from this field. She is building a credibility. She wants to do that and she's aware of it. So it's fantastic work, Shivani. I mean, appreciate that you went through that initial pains to get yourself ISO certified and then move forward. But look at what is happening in the fintech world and people who get into app. They are more about marketing. They are hardly about security. Security is an afterthought, and we can debate it outside this session also. But we know that's at least true for 80-85%. So that aside, I just want to compliment that you actually went through that startup thought about security is fantastic. So that's good one. But coming back to the point, Kush, is that the implementation now, the best of organizations. So let's say now let's look at a regulated organization because we want that in regulated organization, they are aware of the rules, they are aware of the policies, they are aware of a lot of things which in an unregulated environment may not happen. So if that assumption we take forward, the first time if a user inside a well-regulated organization actually detects something going wrong, what does he or she do? They just log a call in their help desk. And you know who's manning this help desk? The person is hardly any experience in security. So what he does, he or she goes to the laptop or desktop in question and say, okay, let me take a check. And he opens something, copies something, deletes something and things like that. That itself destroys the evidence in the court. I mean, the chain of evidence is lost. You don't know what's there. And then, we say it is difficult to enforce and difficult to do, but then we have not trained ourselves. The forensic kind of investigation, the evidence gathering, I hardly know any organization where the help desk guys would know that. Of course, in boardrooms, in CISO meetings, in a lot of these chats, we can discuss it because we are aware of it and it's still theoretical for us. But even if your own machine goes down today, you try to check something, you try to delete something, you are actually playing with the evidence. And when you give to anyone for further checking, do you even take a checksum? And there are various other method to ensure that your data is not touched after you have given custody of the evidence. We don't do that. And that is where the laxity comes. Now, look at the similar implementation in GDPR case, and we have heard cases where there have been fines imposed on Microsoft, Google, and other organizations as well. There, the implementation and the clarity there is very different, and that I think makes a lot of difference. It's not that their laws we will have a weaker laws. In fact, I would say the reverse way. Some of our laws are even more stringent than the international laws, but the implementation, the knowledge, the execution part is where the difficulties. I mean, the law enforcement agencies set up the whole cyber security cell where 80% of the people are on temporary basis. I mean, you can really understand people join there for experience and then they get into corporate side very quickly. So, those are some of the lacunas that we still have, and that's where the difference is coming out.
I think that's actually quite well put, Lalit. That without enforcement, laws are just ideas, right? Yeah, maybe they're ideas written on paper, but if you don't enforce them, do they really have an effect? But if we sort of take that thread, right, that was a pretty broad look. But because you've seen how this is materially affecting folks, right? How this is playing out, not just on people's laptops and stuff, but on systems that essentially are smartphones or systems by themselves. Systems that we are carrying around everywhere we go. They probably know more about us than we do, right? I don't remember where I was like on 4th January 2019 at 4 p.m., right? But my phone probably does. So what are some inputs that you can provide from your experience saying, like, what, this is something that we should consider when building or enforcing regulatory framework for the average person to be secure on their mobile devices?
Sure, sure. So I'll cover actually two things. One is on the server side. So you have a lot of standards of OWASP basis which you have something like a brute force attack, you have misconfigurations, you have components like where a broken authentication could be there. Maximum like even the latest OWASP standards, they say the misconfiguration has come to the highest level, which means even on a server the default settings remains as it is. So the people who are setting up those servers, they keep the default settings as it is. That means it's very easy for for somebody to get an understanding on that server. Plus, see what is happening right now, even on the mobile application or any application development, IT security has become like an afterthought. So it's not something which is getting when you kick off a project, you do not have a DevSecOps. What you have is basically a model where once you built it, then you start doing a test on the security side. So if you basically start putting security on the topmost priority when you are designing a product, I think that keeps it much more secure than in terms of the overall standards which you are building as part of the application itself. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
I think in a nutshell, basically, it's like you can't just think about like while I directed the question at the mobile device in people's pockets, like there's a backend to support the applications and go there. So you've got to think about the whole picture.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. I think that's really valid. Like that's a really valid concern that is often overlooked. Right. In fact, I overlooked it in my question. But before we go to students' questions, right? I do want to leave some time for students' questions and also for folks to chime in with where if somebody wants to get in touch with you after this call to discuss some of these ideas, how they can get in touch with you. So I'll save some time for that at the end. But Sham, maybe you can give us sort of the final thoughts on this. That how can we, like, what else should we keep in mind when if you have to inform somebody who's drafting the laws or figuring out how to better enforce the laws? What are the inputs you would give to someone like that?
So I'll just come to the final thoughts, but I just was very itching to answer Lalit's point. It's a really good point, right? See, the evidence integrity and the chain of custody are the two things that we are lacking right now. Now, evidence integrity is when you have a cyber breach or an incident, you should not probably handle it. It should be dismantled from the network, put it into actually a Ziploc cover and should be kept, which means that's called as the chain of custody. That's what happens. Evidence integrity is you reduce the number of fingerprints or the footprints or the usage of that infected device by 10 people. It's like when a kid probably falls down, right, in your neighborhood, you have 10 people who comes and puts coffee powder, sometimes turmeric powder, and water, tincture, that worsens the wound. Only the mother knows about it, leave it to the mother. That's exactly what the country actually needs. When you have an incident, you should know who will handle it. And Lalit rightly pointed it out. There are no ops teams who do not know about it. The desk guys, right? That's why you should have clearly defined playbooks or rule books in the company. These are the X10 of steps. These are the basic education that every individual should probably have. Don't fiddle with something. It's not your TV remote. You tap on the TV 10 times and hit your remote like 10 times, it doesn't work because it's an infected device. And as Lalit also rightly mentioned, right, we do not have trained people. Most of them just come for certificates. They say, I've worked as an intern here, my job is done. And also sometimes the forensic, the way these devices are handled are entirely different. Somebody should know memory forensics. You cannot come and say something gets deleted. Anything that gets deleted still sits like a boss in the memory. You just have to look at the right places at the right time. Very, very simple, right? The common logic is if something is stored in a computer, something is erased in a computer, it should sit somewhere, right? Because somebody, when they build something, they can troubleshoot something. There is a way to do it. That is what the attackers are leveraging. They know where to look for. Attackers are actually looking at the right places, and researchers and forensics experts don't at times. That's the whole bottom line of these things. So that really valid points, Late. So we should have a law that's a stringent law, and as also Shivani and Vikas mentioned, right? This has become a aftermath, right? Dude, okay, I ate outside, food poisoning. Give me a Crocin or a $6.50, sorted. No, it is not. It is not. Every organization should have a breach mentality, a drill. You have fire safety drill in your organization, right? Fire is not going to come, but you know at least what to do, correct? So that should be a breach mentality in every organization. Every 2 months, simulate a cyber attack. Try to recover your backups. Try to recover, run this run books, test it out. Call your experts, see if they're able to do it. This is the agenda. This is the need of the hour. You should know whom to contact. You should know, like at home we have one big list of emergency numbers written, right? We know whom to call when. That should happen in an organization. You should know who is the right person. Everybody should have visibility in these things. So I'm sorry, I just took an extra time. I really wanted to cover Lalit, Shivani's and Vikas's points. So I just wanted to sum that up. Actually, it was really good points, that evidence integrity and chain of custody, which even sometimes their local police stations do not know, right? A lot of pornographic incidents happen today. They don't know how to obtain the evidence. They say, no, sir, it was deleted. Dude, you can take it out. If you can do it, you can do it. You just have to be trained. So that's when people like us, we should reach our wings out to them saying that we will train you. We don't expect any monetary benefit out of it. We need a society where our kids should grow safe today. And we are all ready. Money is different. We can make money everywhere. But we are ready to render a support to these things. It's up to the country and the other practitioners to reach out to us. So that's
That's a really solid note to close out on, Shan. You know what I'm going to do? I've been reading through the chat to see some of the questions that are coming in. Folks have been answering, especially, I've seen Sham chiming in a lot. I've seen responses from Lalit. I'm seeing basically a lot of questions and answers going out. But there might be, I saw a couple of themes that were worth highlighting, right? Even though there were multiple questions on a specific topic, we've seen essentially questions like, okay, applications need permissions. Even if I do get malware, or I'm careful about it, somebody could send, like Sham said, you could send some sort of infected maybe image or something else that looks like an image. There are other ways where there'll be some applications that are refused to install unless you grant them the right permissions. Because for situations like this, right, except for just not using these applications, is there anything the average user can do? Regulations, of course, take time to enforce, they take time to build. But does the average user have any other option except saying, I'm not going to use such applications and vote with their data?
No, so ideally, what is the purpose of that application and what permissions are being asked, plus what kind of authentication methodology is being used. So today, if you say typically, all mobile applications from BFSI would have a two-factor authentication. So if I just have just a user ID password authentication, do I need to install that application? One. Secondly, where is it coming from? So can I do a research on the company from where this application is coming from? So and can I do a search on the Google itself, saying that is this product being like a scamster, or is there any malware which could be attached to it? So some of these things, rather than just getting information that you need to download a XYZ application, can I do some research and the last thing is, of course, I should be downloading the application from the App Store only. Unknown sources, it should be a no-go, or it could be through an MDM. So within an organization, you have an MDM, right? So if it's pushed from an MDM, you still know that it's a very secure thing to be installed on your device.
Yeah, I think those are solid inputs, right? In a nutshell, if Vikas, correct me if I'm missing something here, but in a nutshell, there are trusted sources that do the hard work of validating valid applications for you, like the Play Store, like the iOS Store, like your organization's MDM. Let them do that hard work rather than you trying to fight, like the million attackers that are out there, because that way we're not going to win fighting one-on-one. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, plus sometimes, when you install an application, you start understanding that your battery is draining really fast. That means that application uses some sort of a background process, right? So can you basically identify which that application is? And, you try to figure out, whether the background process is being there or not. And, whether what kind of a background process. So I'm sure a lot of it could not be understood by, by users, but certainly when you start seeing that your battery is getting drained, so is there some process which is basically draining it, or some information which is getting out of your device? So maybe that could give you some more insights.
I think
Thanks.
just to
That's
add
useful.
to, sorry, Kush, just interrupting for a second. I think there are two things that we need to look, especially on the mobile side, is the battery which Vikas mentioned, and also the data that is being used. I think if we keep a track and manually or systematically about the data is getting used, you quickly understand if by installing or uninstalling a particular application, if your data movement changes, then that is a area that you need to investigate quickly, especially when you're installing, because the ultimate aim of any person to take away the data is to use that data, and he's taking the data, and he is at least at this point of time taking only a specific data or having a condition into only this type of data is something that at the end point is not happening aggressively. What is happening is you just take a data dump, whatever you can get your hands to it, and all the intelligence has been behind. So if people start monitoring their data usage along with battery usage, you will have a fair idea if things are on track or not on track. I mean, as a rule of thumb.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a pretty solid consideration that again, I think the sort of theme we're getting to is that we can pick up general trends, right? Battery consumption or higher data flows or whatever else. But because we can't solve every problem, we should take reasonable precautions. But let's not try to get ourselves in that risky position in the first place. And that's probably something where, Shivani, maybe you can chime in, where another theme we saw in the questions in the chat was, frustration at the lack of policy enforcement or at the lack of policy progress, where I saw somebody expressing frustration that the PDP bill 2019 is still stuck, right? I saw another thing about like, what can we do to improve enforcement? What are some ideas that, we can actually apply?
See, policy enforcement and policy making, as Lalit sir also mentioned, like these are very two different things. So we need to understand, we need to hold people accountable for what they are doing. Even if we are laying out frameworks, policies, procedures, there should be a person accountable for one particular section where we can, come back and ask like, we allocated this thing to you where we are. Or in, if you have noticed, when we are doing a lot of audits also, there is always a particular person who is in charge of a particular segment where we can go back, okay, this we have done. Now after 1 year you will be asked on these points, and these are the mitigation steps that you have to do. And we have a log register where we log everything. So we hold people accountable for whatever policies they are framing, whatever procedures they are framing. So that actually eases out such a certain amount of frustration. But there are people who need an extra push, where we do a mid internal audits and tell them, okay guys, but you need to do it. So uh, these are very long processes, and we have to be very assertive and firm at particular points when we are drafting, or we are enforcing these. And PDP bill, I know it has been introduced long back, but this is something, the fear of the unknown. I am not sure why it is not being passed in the parliament. So let's see when it passes. And it's high time. They have been framing this, and we are still waiting on that. So
I think
it
that's
is
a good
important,
point.
yes.
Sorry,
Yes,
Shivani,
it
go
is
ahead. I didn't interrupt.
no problem. So because it is important, as we have GDPR, European countries are following it like extensively, and none of their applications or anything are even a website are passed when they have cookie policies updation, or how they are collecting their data. Even people have the right to even ask their data back. They have policies of such kind. We should be implementing those as well. That is the PDP bill is for. But we know Indians, we हम थोड़ा सा late हो जाते हैं हर चीज में. So I think we are taking that time. And let's see, we should be waiting for that.
No,
Okay, you know what,
Shivani,
Vivek? Sorry.
sorry,
Yes.
Go ahead.
Shivani, I just put one of the points why it's not getting made into a law. The reason is
Yeah.
again the enforcement. So you look at
Yes.
India. India is not Europe, obviously, and the implementation part. Now, In cities, you can still have police stations who understand what they need to do and they can be trained. Go to a small village which hardly has any policing mechanism, and there something happens because this is are going to be applicable across the country. They wouldn't have the tools, the information, the capability. I mean, they don't have for regular patrolling the right amount of skill. And we are expecting them to get into a cyber world, which is a world by itself. So India actually is a very complex country to enforce or regulate laws. And the downside also is that one, our resolution time is big, and two, we misuse it as well to a large extent, and there is no downside to misuse in many cases. So those are considerations that play a big part in any regulation creation. So if you talk to lawmakers, they are worried on those parts as well. I mean, as I said, setting up a law inside a parliament is not a very difficult task to get it, but the infrastructure, the back end that everything is required to implement is a big challenge in a country like us.
I'll go to, on that note, I'll go to Vikas for the final closing point, because I do want to give everyone on the panel, you've given solid inputs, and students might not be satisfied with just an hour and a half. They might have so many more questions. They might want to ask you a lot more. So I do want to set some time aside for that at the end so that you can tell them where they can get in touch with you. But Vikas, I'm probably going to go to you for the closing note. We've been seeing lots of strategies on the legal side, on the technical side, from Shyam, for example, from Shomaron early on, about what the problems are and what to look out for. But I can't tell my aunt and uncle to, go check like RC4 checksums or, look for EAS encryption, right? What are some common, layperson enforceable ideas that we can give without imposing too much of a burden on, say, our family members or the average person on the street?
So I think it should be tackled at the source level itself, right? So today you do not have any compliance when you basically put an application on a store, right? So can I have a compliance check, and can it essentially say that this is coming from a right channel, right? So if I essentially because again, as you said, you can't restrict anybody to download an application or look at him to get an understanding whether it is AES 256 encrypted or not. So that's not practically possible. But if you have, so like how Apple does, right? So when I essentially submit an application to an Apple store, they would first want to check what the application content is. And if it is not getting passed, they would essentially give a reason why it's not getting passed. So if you have an application which is using a user ID password authentication, Apple would very clearly say, I need a user ID password so that I can check every, the entire application before I can make it available on a store. So so I think it has to be done at the source itself, like how Apple does. That's what my thought is. Of course, we would want to listen to Lalit also, because I think he has got a fairly very strong experience on some of these things. So. But I think it should be tackled at the source itself. Like today, you have lot of lending applications, right? And these applications practically take your entire SMS, and with that SMS, they can know since how long you are using that application. So the vintage of your device, they can know what kind of a credit or debit you have on your device in terms of what is your salary, what is your what are your expenses, how much do you pay for Zomato, how much for Swiggy, and basically basis that they create a score, and then they decide how much money should be lended to you, right? But you just imagine your entire data is gone, right? Your entire SMS information, which is your private information, is gone from your device. So maybe I think it should happen at the source level rather than at a user level.
I think that's a pretty solid note to close out on, because like I said, I'm sure a lot of the students will say that I have more things I want to get your thoughts on, or maybe I want to get guidance from you. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to request our panelists to keep a quick eye on the clock. Maybe we can just take 60 to 90 seconds each to just close out. And if students want to get in touch with you, if they want to get more information, maybe discuss some topics more with you, how can they get in touch with you? What's the best way to grab a hold of you? Maybe you can start off with Shyam. Maybe take a minute and a half.
I will keep it short and simple. So questions always.
Thanks.
So guys, you can find me everywhere. Just Google, Instagram, Just type my name. I'm always there. I'm everywhere. So happy to help, mentor, whoever wants any help. Just reach out to me. And anybody who wants directions on forensics, if you want to take it up as a career, or if you want to understand the basics of forensics, feel free to reach out to me. And I always am happy to help. I mentor a lot of students. I also, you should probably see my face pretty familiar because Angelica ma'am knows about it. I keep coming and talking and troubling you guys in your class. So always happy to help you guys. Reach out to me. And also, if you probably want to get more insight from a management standpoint, understand a lot of things, this is like a shameless marketing, but still you can still read my book. Just Google it. It's called It's Your Digital Life. I've co-authored the book, put in a lot of stuff like banking, macro frauds, how it happens. I've even covered how OLX fraud actually happens. So there are a lot of stuff. Just feel free to read it. It's pretty interesting and need all your support on that. And yeah, I'm always available. I'm just one stone throw message away in LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, Twitter. Reach out to me. I'm happy to help. Take any questions. So yeah, let's build a strong community. You are the future. We need people like you. So I think Vikas, Lalit, and Shivani, we need people like you guys. So we need to build an army. We have a lot of threats that are lurking around us. We need to be vigilant. As I just want to sign off by saying that one Batman quote. Um, I am always what I want what Gotham wants me to be. So whatever you want me to be, I'll be that. So that's how I am. So let's yeah. So thank you.
Thanks, Shyam. Shyam, I'm also going to request you to just drop links or your handle or something in the chat, just in case somebody missed
Doing.
out. Let's go over to Shivani. If you can also tell folks how they can get in touch with you if they want to get have more detailed discussions.
Thank you. First of all, I would really like to thank Symbiosis and Team Matrix to invite me over to this insightful panel. And though I know Mr. Lalit, we have had a talk before, a brief one. I met Vikas and Sham, amazing people. And as far as I am concerned, so as I told, I am a startup founder. I founded my company a year back. If you all want to learn how are the struggles of a startup to get it done from the course, from the grassroots level to take it up, and you know how to get right people for yourself, we are still hiring if anyone wants to apply, and you can get in touch with me. And information security is a field where we need exceptional talent. I want to bridge that gap, you know, having creating awareness about this field. I am part of a lot of cybersecurity groups, InfoSec Kids, InfoSec Diversity, where people who wants to come here and also you know, give a platform where they can showcase their skills. If anyone wants to get in touch with me, I'll put down my LinkedIn handle over here. I would be happy and great that we all can connect on a level. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shivani. You actually preempted one of my requests, which is going to be put your LinkedIn in the chat. Thanks. And you, of course, we are hiring music to a student's ears, right? Let's go over to Vikas. Vikas, how would we get in touch with you if we want to have more detailed discussions?
Yeah, sure, Krish. So thanks everyone for joining this, and thanks for thanks to Lalit, Sham, and Shivani and Kush for this wonderful panel discussion. Everyone can get in touch with me on vikas@mobitel.com, my personal email ID, and I'll also share my LinkedIn URL so you can get in touch with me. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Vikas. And lastly, of course, Lalit, all yours.
No, actually, I want Kush you to tell about yourself, how we can search you. You moderated it so well. So I want you to do the honors first, and then I'll just give the last in.
I tend to be more of a behind the scenes guy. I tend not to be too social. You won't find me on Facebook. You won't find me on Insta. On Twitter, I don't really do much except like follow a few folks for information security news. But I'm available on LinkedIn. I'll drop my link in the chat. Thanks, Lalit. But this is essentially your spotlight, right? So I don't want to take any more away.
No, nothing. So, unlike Sham and all, I'm not very well known on the social media, but good for this opportunity that at least I can now learn a lot of from Sham. I think technically what I could make out and what understand, he's far into it, hands-on. So fantastic. But yeah, I am available on LinkedIn. I'll drop in my mail. I'm also available on Facebook, Insta, like everyone, but not very active on it. So yeah, I'll send in the details in the chat box. You can reach out to me, and yeah, happy to answer any question you have in this area. Thank you.
Wow, I mean, Lalit, beyond all the insights you gave me, the one more thing I sort of loved is you closed us right on the dot, right at 12 noon. I honestly expected that we would run over because we have a tendency to do that on panels. But thanks, the insights from the entire panel have been really useful. I'm sure a lot of the students would have learned a lot in just like this 1.5 hour window, and they probably have a lot more they want to learn about. There's all sorts of resources and links that will be coming your way. Some already are in chat. We'll probably try to send more through Team Matrix and Angelina ma'am. But if you have questions, drop a line to any of us, LinkedIn, Twitter, email, whatever channels are most comfortable for you. So I want to hand it back to the Team Matrix. I want to hand it back to Team Matrix, and thanks SCIT for having us. So I think, would that be you, Angelina, or would that be Sheetal again?
Yeah, thank you so much once again from our end. And we have Sheetal here, I think.
Yes. Thank you all the panelists. Thank you, Kushagra sir. That was an amazing session, and we can all see the enthusiasm of our batch through reactions. They really loved this whole session, and we really got to know about many things, those industry insights. So that will be really helpful for us in future, definitely. We will feel free to connect and ask more questions to you through your LinkedIn and whatever details you shared with us to connect. Thank you so much for that. And with that note, I will like to hand over this session to Vidyavati ma'am for the vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Sheetal, and thank you, everyone. So here we are coming to the end of the beautiful session that we had, a lot of knowledge sharing that happened with all really eminent speakers. So yes, here's the end. The vote of thanks basically is nothing but acknowledgement of the job well done. This vote of thanks too carries a sincere gratitude to many over here. I, Vidyavati Ramteke, on behalf of SCIT family, take this opportunity to thank our esteemed keynote speaker, Anirudh Duggal, for accepting our invitation and guiding our students. I express my sincere thanks for all the support received from our sponsors, ISACA headquarters, our community sponsors, namely Nalcon, Rainbow Secure, Stories of InfoSec Journeys, Cybersecurity Global Alliance, Ashwin Krishnan, for supporting us. Our heartfelt thanks to our panel members, Mr. Vikas Kedia, Mr. Shamaron Das Gupta, Mr. Lalit Pokli, and Shyam Sundar Ramaswamy. Shivani Sharma, thanks a lot. And moderator Kushagra. Kushagra, you really amaze us every year. And we are so thankful that you are here, because otherwise the sessions would not have been so happening the way they happen with you. I'd like to thank our director, Dr. Danya ma'am, our deputy director, Kanchan ma'am, for being a constant source of inspiration. Without them, the event is not possible. With their support, we are here today. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to both of them. I thank all the faculty members, admin officer, our lab team, our academic staff, and admin staff for their constant support. And thank you, dear participants and students. Without your presence, this event would not have happened. And last but not the least, a big thank you to Team Matrix, ISG members, and Web and Media team for their untiring efforts. With managing all their academics, we actually, pester them with a lot of assignments, a lot of academic activities, lots of evaluation, but they really managed the show very well. Because of them, today we see this grand success. Thank you so much, everyone. God bless.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank
Over
you.
to you, Sheetal.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for such a lovely note, ma'am. So with this, we will end today's session. See you all tomorrow with the same enthusiasm and same excitement. Thank you all for being a lovely audience. Thank you.
Everyone, have a great day.
Thank you. Hey, Kushal, thank you so much, man. You're such a rock star.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, man. It's all you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Just to add to Sheetal, so tomorrow we are celebrating the womanhood in cybersecurity. So please stay tuned for the panel discussion tomorrow, and we extend a warm invitation to all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm coming tomorrow as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah, we didn't
Thank you,
mention that at the
Kushagra.
end. We
Thank
should
you,
have mentioned
everyone.
that.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day, ma'am. Have a good day, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.